Hi class, so in this video I'm going to go over 5.01 opera. And this I want you to really think about what even is opera and how is it different from other musical styles. So what even is opera? Opera is specifically these gigantic music productions, and it includes music, it includes all the costuming, the makeup, the set design, all of that comes together to make opera. Opera isn't just the music. You can sing in an operatic style or the bel canto style, but you aren't going to, like, the music can't be separated from everything else. They come together as a whole. All right, so I want you to look at this question and tell me which of these phrases best describes an opera. Is it a theatrical play of classical, Greek, or Roman story? A production that integrates music, dance, sets, and costumes to enhance the telling of a story? Is it a short musical play with songs interspersed among spoken parts? Is it a one-act play with the story told and sung by a single character? So let's get some more history. So opera dates back to the very late Renaissance, although we typically talk more in the Baroque time period, but it does go back to the late Renaissance to Florence, Italy. And first we get this intermediate, which is just kind of like the beginnings of opera. It's a much smaller production. And during late Renaissance, we have this fascination with Greek history and stories. And they also had this tradition of theater and having music as a part of their theater. And so they started to bring that back and come up with this idea of opera. Opera developed from this Greek theory, this Greek idea of combining music and theater. And there was this call for a different style at this time. We're in the Renaissance, everything is evolving. So why is music not evolving much too? So this happens, they're evolving it. And so they decided to combine it to create a brand new art form. And it started really small, but our first major production was Orfeo in 1607. That is the first major operatic production. So we got to look at the music. We have a couple different kinds of music that are associated with the opera. First, we have the aria, and this is what most people think of when they think of opera. This is typically one, maybe two people singing, and they're singing these beautiful phrases, and they're wonderful and beautiful and exaggerated. That is aria. Then we get the recitative, and it's recitative. The C's in Italian are typically the ch sound. So it's recitative. And this is what's the spoken part. So it's spoken in tune. So instead of just speaking their lines, they are speaking. And that is the recitative. This isn't the action. The aria, this is the action. The recitative, this is the story. Then we get the overture. So the overture is at the beginning of the production, and it often includes snippets from pieces of music throughout the production, but it will typically have an overarching overture, overarching to the performance. And this is what audiences are listening to prior to the performance starting. But it is still technically part of the performance. It was a piece of music in and of itself that should have been respected. Thing to note, though, when opera was in its heyday, especially in the Baroque period, the arias were often interchanged. Our prima donnas would be like, oh, I don't like that aria. I like this aria. I'm going to perform it instead. So they would switch things up, especially in the Baroque period. It was all about ornamentation and showing off what you could do. So those singers would prefer to show off the pieces that really showed off their vocal skills. And so they would often kind of shift them back and forth. So I'm going to play an example of a recitative. So I want you to listen and hear that kind of spoken sound where it almost sounds like they're speaking, but not quite. And then I'm going to play an example of an aria, and I just want you to listen to this.
Chi colui? Vi pare che un onest'uomo, un nobil cavalier come io mi vanto, possa soffrir che quel visetto d'oro quel viso inzuccherato, da un bifolcaccio vil sia strapazzato.
Ma signore, io gli diedi parola di sposarlo.
Tal parole non vale un zero. Voi non siete fatta per esser paesana. La cirarem la mano, la mi dirai di sì. Vedi non è lontano, partiam ben mio da qui.
Vorrei e non vorrei, mi trema un poco il cuore, felice versarei, ma burlarmi ancor burlarmi ancor.
So now that you've listened to two different examples, I want you to tell me, what is the difference between aria and recitative? So listen to it again, backtrack me if you've got to, but listen to it again and tell me, what is the difference between aria and recitative? The next major part in an opera is the libretto. The libretto, this is the words. This is the book, the written down. This is what we're talking about. So this is the words. This is a major part of this production. Without the libretto, there is no opera. We've got to have the libretto because it is a story. It's a storytelling process. So tell me, which component of an opera is the text of the story? Which one is the text? Is it the score, the aria, the recitative, or the libretto? Now we've got the voice parts. These are the typical voice parts in an opera. There are some other voice parts as well, but these are the main ones. We have the soprano, and this is usually associated with a higher pitch range of singing, but that doesn't necessarily always mean that. All of these are actually associated with a vocal quality within a certain range of pitches, but sopranos are typically associated with higher singing. We also have the coloratura sopranos, and they are the super duper high squeaky singers. We get the mezzo sopranos, which is somewhere in the middle between a soprano and alto. Remember, the word mezzo means medium. Alto, these are typically the lower altos, or the lower singers. We can also even have contraltos, which is somewhere between an alto and a tenor. And this could be a male or a female, but soprano and alto are typically associated with female singers. And then we get to tenors, and they're the higher of the tenors, typically, the higher of the male singers, typically. And we can get first tenor and second tenor. So there's higher and not quite so high. Then we get baritone, which is up here, which is in between tenor and bass. And we get bass, which is our very lowest voice part. Now there's a voice part that is not listed here that was very common in opera in the Baroque time period. And that is the castrati part. And so castrati at the time, they were young boys who were not allowed to go through puberty. And so their voices never did drop. And so they had this really eerie vocal quality. And we don't have any recordings of this. We don't know exactly what it sounds like anymore. We can only guess what it sounded like. So we have some different types of opera. We have opera seria, and this is typically moral and heroic themes. This is where all those Greek plays and Greek ideas come in. We're going to have very moral fiber and heroic events. And then we get opera buffa, which is typically comedic, and not always, but it's much more lighthearted, very much less serious. Then we get Singspiel. This came from Germany, specifically Wagner, and Singspiel is similar to recitative in that it sounds almost spoken, but it's somewhere in between spoken and sung, kind of in the middle, Singspiel. We also get the ballad opera. The ballad opera, this is England's response to Germany's Singspiel, like, oh, well, y'all got something, we're going to have something too. So it was their response, and they were often very political in nature. So tell me, which phrase best describes opera seria? So which is opera seria? An Italian comic opera, a serious or tragic opera that utilized speaking roles instead of recitative, a serious tragic opera where arias and recitatives alternated in predictable ways, a tragic opera with the text set entirely to music. You decide. All right, at this QR code, if you want to go to this will take you to the Metropolitan Opera's website, and they have a list of operas that you can watch for free if you just want to watch a snippet just to get your taste of it. They also have backstories and histories and synopsises of all these operas. So use this QR code to take you to go look at some of those. All right, guys, we are at the end. I hope that you go visit that QR code and learn some more about opera. It's a really rich, culturally rich musical style that has been emulated by many cultures around the globe, and it's absolutely fascinating. Have a great day.